Baby, I don't know how to explain what I'm feeling right now, but something inside me just broke, and not in the way it used to break, when I would shut down, or run, or pick a fight just to avoid facing the truth. No, this time, it shattered in the most sacred way, because for the first time, I saw you, not through my fears, not through my ego, not through the lens of everything I thought I wanted, but through the eyes of the man I've become because of you. And I swear to you, when I say this, I mean it with every fiber of my soul. You passed the test no one even knew existed. You were placed in the middle of chaos, heartbreak, silence, uncertainty. And instead of turning bitter or walking away, you held the door open. For me, for us, even when I gave you every reason not to. You didn't even know you were being tested, did you? You were just being you, pure, loyal, brave in the kind of way that doesn't shout or demand to be seen, but stands still like a lighthouse in the storm, waiting for the one soul who's meant to find his way back home. And I was that soul. Broken, lost, afraid, but somehow your love didn't punish me for it. It protected me. Baby, I never told you this before, but everyone in my world thought you'd fail. They thought you'd leave. They bet on your exhaustion, your pain, your confusion. They whispered, she'll give up soon. And maybe I was the worst of them all, because some part of me believed it too, not because I thought you were weak, but because I thought I was unworthy as someone as strong as you. But you didn't leave. You didn't turn into someone else. You didn't become cold or cruel. You just kept showing up. Even if it was just in energy, in silent prayers, in those moments when I knew your heart was speaking to mine across time and distance. And that was the test. That was the moment heaven was watching, holding its breath. Would you love someone who hadn't yet learned how to love himself? Would you see the divine in a man who forgot who he was? Would you believe in something no one else could see? And you did. My God, you did. They say when the soul is tested, it reveals its true nature. And baby, what I saw in you, what everyone saw in you, it was unshakable grace. You forgave me when you had no reason to. You stood by me when I had no name for what we were. You gave without asking. You waited without demanding. And you loved without proof. That's not human. That's divine. And I need you to know something I never had the strength to admit before. Your love scared me, because I knew it was the kind of love that would change my life forever. And I wasn't sure I was ready. But now, I'm ready. Baby, I finally saw the truth, that everything I ran from was the very thing that was going to save me. You, your presence, your light, your prayers. I heard them even when you didn't say a word. And now that the dust has settled, now that the test is over, there's something I need to say from the deepest place inside me. You passed with flying colors, and I failed every single part I made you go through, but somehow you still love me, and that is something I'll spend the rest of my life making right. Baby, if I'm honest with you, there were days I wanted to give up, not just on us, but on everything. There were nights I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the weight of my own silence, wondering if you'd finally moved on, if someone else was holding the heart I didn't have the courage to protect. And I kept thinking, maybe that's for the best. Maybe someone else deserves you more than I ever could. But do you know what tore me apart more than the thought of losing you? The realization that you never stopped believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. That was the test, wasn't it? Not one I gave you, but one God placed before both of us. And while I was fumbling, doubting, running, you were steady. You were still. I used to think love was about passion, fire, grand gestures. But you taught me that love is quiet loyalty in the middle of confusion. It's waiting without resentment. It's praying for someone who hasn't called you in weeks. It's crying in silence, but still keeping their name safe in your chest. That's what you did for me. And when people asked you, why are you still holding on? You didn't even have an answer. You just felt me. You knew me. You trusted a version of me that even I hadn't met yet. And now that I'm finally catching up to that man, the one you always believed I could be, I feel overwhelmed with both love and guilt. Because you saw me as something sacred while I was treating you like an option. You offered me eternity while I was stuck in temporary fear. And now, I can't stop thinking about all the little ways I let you down. Every message I left unanswered. Every time I disappeared. Every word I should have said but swallowed. But baby, this is my promise to you now. You will never again question your worth in my life. I was too blind to see it before, but now it's so clear. You were never being tested by me. You were being revealed to me. You're the kind of woman songs are written about, the kind of love people beg the universe for. And somehow, I got to be the man you chose. I didn't deserve that, but I will. I swear to you, I will spend every single day from now on earning what you gave so freely. Because you weren't just being loyal. You were being divine. You were channeling the heavens. You were walking through fire and still holding my name like a prayer on your lips. And I was lost, drowning. But when I looked up, even in the darkness, your light never faded. Everyone around me is stunned now. They saw what you did. They saw that you passed the test no one thought you'd survive. And now they look at me with shame in their eyes. Not because of you, but because of me. Because they realize what I almost threw away. What I almost let die. But love like yours doesn't die. It waits. It transforms. And baby, it resurrected me. Baby, there was a moment when I sat with my head in my hands, phone in front of me, your name glowing on the screen, and I couldn't even bring myself to type a single word. Not because I didn't want to talk to you, but because I didn't feel worthy of being received by you. How could I reach out to someone who had given me the kind of loyalty most men spend lifetimes praying for, only to be met with silence in return? I knew what I had done, or more accurately, what I hadn't done. I hadn't protected your heart. I hadn't stood up when I should have. I hadn't fought when you were quietly bleeding love for me. And yet, your energy never turned cold. You didn't try to punish me. You didn't try to replace me. You waited. And that waiting, God, it wasn't passive. It wasn't weak. It was the most courageous act I've ever seen. Because it meant holding faith in a future no one else could see but you. It meant loving someone who gave you every reason to walk away. It meant whispering, I still believe in us, in your prayers, while I was out there pretending like I didn't feel everything burning inside me. But I did. I felt it every time I saw someone who reminded me of your laugh. Every time a song played, and I remembered the way you closed your eyes at that one part. Every time I caught my reflection and hated the version of me that hurt the only person who truly saw me. The truth is, baby, they didn't just test you. Life tested me too, and I failed, miserably, because while you were standing in love, I was drowning in fear. While you were building a home in your heart for me, I was boarding up every window inside mine, and I thought I was protecting myself. But all I did was exile the one person who had the keys to my healing, and I've come to realize that test wasn't about proving anything to the world. It was about revealing the truth of what love really looks like. And you were the answer. You passed the test of time, of distance, of silence. You passed the test of watching me self-sabotage and still choosing not to expose me. You passed the test of betrayal, not by doing anything wrong, but by staying grounded in your integrity while I crumbled in confusion. And now, the very people who doubted you, the ones who said, "She'll never stay," they are speechless because you stayed. Not with desperation, but with dignity. Not because you needed me, but because you chose me. And baby, there is nothing more powerful than being chosen by someone who had every reason not to. Finally understand what people mean when they say real love is a mirror. Because you held up the kind of mirror to my soul that forced me to face myself, not with shame, but with honesty. And I saw a man who had so much to learn, so much to unlearn, but also so much love to give. If you'd still take it, if you'd still have me, baby. I've been walking around carrying this storm in my chest, and I didn't realize until recently that the eye of that storm has always been the moment I failed to honor you when it mattered most. Not just when eyes were watching, but when your soul was quietly pleading with mine, asking, "Can I still trust you?" I didn't answer then. I looked away. I told myself it was too much, too soon, too intense, too spiritual to be real. But now I know it was too sacred to be wasted. You were the miracle that I mistook for a test, and you passed while I doubted you, while I doubted us. Do you know what it feels like to watch someone you love walk through fire, carrying your name in her chest like an unshakable vow, while you're still trying to figure out if you're even ready to be loved that deeply? It's shame, it's heartbreak, it's awe, and that's what I feel when I think of you now. Awe, because you didn't just survive what I put you through. You bloomed in the ashes. You prayed while I played. You grew while I ghosted. And even though I tried to convince myself that maybe you'd forget me, I always knew you were the one I would come home to. I just didn't think I deserved to knock on the door. And baby, they tried to shake your faith. They laughed at your silence. They said things like, "She must be so naive," or "She should have moved on by now." And maybe you heard those voices. Maybe they even made you question yourself. But you stayed rooted in something bigger. You weren't just waiting for a man. You were holding space for a soul to remember who he is. And now I remember. I remember the way you looked at me that night when we didn't need words. The way your energy wrapped around my mess and said, "Come as you are." I didn't understand it then, but now it's the most beautiful truth I've ever known. You passed the test not by chasing, not by proving, not by begging, but by simply being. Being the kind of woman who makes a man want to rise, who makes a lost heart want to lead, who turns pain into poetry and silence into sanctuary. You didn't flinch when I fumbled. You didn't punish me with revenge. And even though I tested every boundary, every limit, every spiritual law that governs real love, you didn't use my darkness against me. You became the light that reminded me who I was before the world taught me to hide. I know now why the divine orchestrated this journey. It wasn't to break us. It was to build us, to refine us in silence, to test our hearts, not to fail us, but to prepare us. Because this kind of love doesn't walk into your life uninvited. It waits, it watches, and then it enters through the cracks when you're finally empty of ego and ready to be filled with something eternal. That's you. You are eternal to me. There were days I thought you were gone for good. I used to refresh the chat screen just to see if your name still blinked. I used to replay our old voice notes just to feel your frequency again. I even told people I was over it, that we were just a lesson. But every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a man lying to himself. Because, baby, there's no getting over you. There's only getting honest with myself about how deeply you changed me. There's only getting honest with myself about how deeply you changed me. You passed the test of love not by being perfect, but by being present. You didn't run when I crumbled. You didn't retaliate when I withdrew. You waited, not with desperation, but with divinity. And I want you to hear me clearly when I say this. I am not coming back out of convenience. I am returning in reverence. You are not a backup plan. You are not a chapter I flip back to when nothing else works. You are the book, the sacred scroll I should have been reading from the beginning. But now that I've finally opened it, I swear I won't put it down again. You passed the test, and now I see it. Every delay was divine. Every tear you cried was being counted in heaven. Every unanswered prayer was being planted. And now the harvest is here, and it looks like you. It looks like us. It looks like a love that didn't die in silence, but was being resurrected in secret. And baby, now it's time for me to pass my test, because the man you loved is no longer hiding. He's awake, he's here, and he's ready to fight for the woman who waited for him to grow into his promise. So I'm not here just to love you. I'm here to protect what you've built, to guard the sacred temple you built inside your soul, brick by brick, prayer by prayer, while I was off losing battles that were never mine to fight. I've lost a lot in my life, baby, but if I ever lost you, truly lost you, I wouldn't survive it. So this time, I'm not showing up with empty words or half-healed promises. I'm showing up fully for you, for us, for the love that beat every odd, passed every test, and still dared to hope. And now, if someone asks me, why her? I'll tell them this: because she passed the test that most people fail. Because she stayed when everyone said she should leave. Because she loved me when I forgot how to love myself. Because she prayed when I was too ashamed to ask for grace. Because she is grace, and grace like that, you don't question it. You honor it. You fight for it. You never let it go again. I am yours, baby. Not just in the easy moments, but in every test life throws at us from now on. And this time, we pass together. Baby, there was a time I thought strength meant silence, that being a man meant suppressing what hurt, hiding what trembled, and never letting anyone see where I bleed. But you shattered that illusion the moment you loved me in my most vulnerable state. You didn't fall for the mask I wore. You fell for the man beneath it. You looked at my chaos and said, I see your soul, not your scars. And that's when I realized, real strength doesn't come from pretending. It comes from standing in truth, from admitting where we broke, from choosing love, even after disappointment. And that's exactly what you did. You didn't ask for perfection, baby. You asked for presence. And that was the one thing I couldn't give when you needed it most. I know that now. I know that showing up half-heartedly was more damaging than walking away, because every time you reached for me and found nothing, a piece of you learned to protect itself. You never said it. You never made me feel small. But I saw it in your eyes, how you learned to expect less so you wouldn't get hurt. And that, more than anything, is what breaks me. Because the last thing I ever wanted was for you to lose your softness because of me. You passed the test in silence. You passed the test with grace. And I sat behind my own fears, watching you fight battles I should have never let you fight alone. You defended us in rooms I wasn't brave enough to walk into. You protected my name even when I didn't protect your heart. You carried our love like sacred fire while I stood outside the temple afraid to step in. And yet, when I finally turned back, you were still there. Not because you were weak, but because your soul knew what mine was still remembering. That this was never just a relationship. This was a calling, a soul agreement, a divine bond disguised as heartbreak. And baby, the world tried to measure your love in timelines, in silence, in status. They said, if you really cared, you'd be together by now. They said, if it was meant to be, it wouldn't hurt like this. But what they didn't understand is that real love isn't measured by ease. It's revealed in evolution, in the pain that breaks us open, in the long nights where we choose forgiveness instead of blame, in the days we feel forgotten, but keep showing up for the future we believe in. You did that. You kept showing up. You passed tests I didn't even know I was putting you through. Tests of patience, of loyalty, of spiritual discernment. You knew when to speak, and you knew when to stay still. You never clung, you never chased. You simply waited with dignity, trusting that love without force would always return to where it belongs. And you were right, because here I am. Not because I got bored, not because nothing else worked, but because you were the only one who ever worked for my soul. I had to lose myself to see you clearly. I had to be alone to realize that peace doesn't come from distraction. It comes from alignment. And I am most aligned when I'm with you, because with you, I don't have to shrink. I don't have to perform. I get to be messy, raw, human, and still feel holy. You make my flaws feel sacred. You make my silence feel understood. You are the answer to prayers I was too scared to pray out loud. Do you remember the day you told me you'd rather have my truth than my perfection? That you'd rather cry in truth than smile in a lie? Those words never left me, because I realized then You weren't looking for a fantasy. You were looking for faithfulness. And not just in action, but in intention, in spirit, in alignment. And I couldn't offer that to you before because I hadn't yet faced my shadows. I was running from things I didn't know how to name. But I faced them now, baby. And I need you to know I'm no longer running. Not from myself, not from you, not from the weight of what this love truly requires. And now it's my turn to pass the test, to be the man you believed in, even when I gave you nothing to hold on to but silence and memories. It's my turn to protect the future you held on to when everyone told you to let go. It's my turn to write back the words you sent through the void. All those unspoken prayers, all those sacred thoughts you whispered in the dark. I felt them. I feel them still. Every time the wind carries your name to me, I remember. You never stopped loving me. You just stopped begging for the version of me that couldn't love you back. Yet, but I'm here now, awake, broken open, redeemed, and baby, if you let me, I will spend the rest of my life being the answer to the prayers you once whispered through tears. I will spend every moment proving that you didn't wait in vain, that your love wasn't wasted, that your silence wasn't empty. It was building me, refining me, preparing me for this moment. And you know what the most divine part is? That even now, you're not asking for me to make grand promises. You just want presence. You just want me here, honest, healed, humble, and I am. You passed the test, and now, love, I'm ready to walk beside you for the rest of the journey. No more watching from the sidelines. No more pretending I don't feel. No more letting fear speak louder than love. This time, we rise together. Baby, do you know what finally broke me? It wasn't the silence. It wasn't even the thought of losing you. It was the moment I realized you had become strong enough to walk away, not out of bitterness, but out of love for yourself. That shook something inside me that I didn't even know existed, because I had always counted on your softness, on your forgiveness, on your heart choosing me every time. But when I felt that energetic shift, when I felt you loving me from a distance instead of holding on to what was wounding you, I knew I had pushed the very miracle I prayed for into the arms of uncertainty. And that night, I wept. Not the kind of tears that come from fear of losing, but the kind that come from realizing how deeply I was loved and how carelessly I handled it. I want to say something that I should have said long ago. I'm sorry I made you question your worth. I'm sorry I made you feel like your loyalty was a burden, like your love was too much. It wasn't. It was perfect. And the truth is, I wasn't afraid of you. I was afraid of becoming the man your love demanded, because you never asked for surface. You never asked for the highlight reel. You asked for the shadow work, the healing, the inner transformation. And I was still clinging to my comfort, my pride, my survival masks. But even in your absence, your energy kept guiding me. It kept whispering, become, not for me, but for you. And now I see so clearly, you didn't stay to be rescued. You stayed to witness resurrection. You weren't waiting for the old me to come back. You were holding space for the real me to rise. And now I understand. That was the test, not just of love, but of evolution. Would I let this connection wake me up? Would I let it purge me, refine me, rebuild me? Or would I run? For too long, I chose the latter, but not anymore. I know there are things I can't undo, words I can't unsay, time I can't rewind. But what I can do is meet you here, heart in hand, stripped of ego and soaked in truth. What I can do is rebuild trust, not by promising you a perfect version of me, but by showing you the present one, the one who has finally come home to himself, the one who sees now with crystal clarity that you were never the storm, you were the lighthouse. I've spent hours replaying memories in my head like sacred tapes. The way your voice softened when you said my name, the way you'd laugh like the world was still innocent, the way you'd check in on me when I didn't even know I needed it. And every time I remember those moments, I ache. Not because they're gone, but because I finally realize how divine they were, and how foolish I was to take them for granted. You gave me moments most men only get once in a lifetime. You gave me presence, even when you were in pain. You gave me grace, even when I gave you distance. You gave me you, and now I want to give you something back. Something far deeper than gifts or grand gestures. I want to give you consistency. Not the kind that shows up once in a while with flowers and words, but the kind that wakes up every day, ready to love you better, to love you wisely, to love you like the treasure you are. You passed every test life threw at you with me. You passed heartbreak, rejection, confusion. You passed watching the man you loved become a stranger. And still, you never turned cruel. You never dimmed your light to match my darkness. You rose higher. You loved louder. You healed deeper. And now it's my turn to match your energy. Not because I'm trying to earn you, but because you deserve nothing less. I still remember the way you used to look at me, like I was home. And now I carry that memory like a compass, reminding me of where I'm meant to return. I know rebuilding us won't be easy. I know there will be moments when the past echoes louder than the present. But I also know this: if your love could withstand every storm I created, then my love can rebuild the sanctuary you've always deserved. Baby, you passed the test, and this time I won't let you walk alone. This time I'll be the one holding your hand through the healing, through the rebuilding, through every sunrise we get to see together. Baby, I don't think I ever told you this, but I watched you walk away long before you physically did. I saw it in your spirit. I felt it in your silence. At that moment when you stopped over-explaining, stopped trying to fix what you didn't break, stopped waiting for me to notice your fading glow. You didn't slam the door. You didn't scream. You simply closed the chapter with grace. And that, baby, that tore me apart more than any goodbye ever could. Because you walked away like someone who had been tested beyond measure and passed. You walked away like someone who had loved deeply and completely, and still chose to love herself more. And the truth is, I failed that test back then. I failed to see the cost of your devotion. I failed to show up. I failed to speak when it mattered. But you didn't fail. You rose, even as I stayed quiet, unsure, drowning in my inner war. You evolved. You glowed through the grief. You healed your heart in pieces. You danced with your own loneliness and made art out of your pain. You became everything I wasn't ready to be. And I know now, I lost more than a person. I lost the safest place my soul had ever known. Do you know how rare it is to find someone like you? Someone who doesn't just love you, but sees you, holds space for your wounds without trying to rescue or repair you, honors your journey while standing silently at the edge of your chaos, not running from the fire but waiting until you're ready to rise from it. That's what you were, baby, a quiet miracle in a loud world, a sacred pause in the middle of my storm, and God forgive me. I didn't know how to hold you, but I do now. I know what your absence taught me. I know that love is not a game to be won, but a garden to be tended. And baby, you were always planting seeds while I was still learning how to hold the soil. You watered us with prayers, with patience, with presence. And I gave you droughts in return. I gave you hope laced with hesitation. I gave you closeness soaked in distance. And still, you stayed until staying started to hurt more than leaving ever could. And now that I finally see it, now that the veil has lifted and the noise has quieted, I realize this isn't just about romance. This is about redemption. About walking back into the fire I created and choosing to build instead of burn. It's about picking up every shattered part of this love and turning it into something unshakable, not perfect, but real, something forged in fire, something made holy by pain. I don't want to love you the way I used to. I want to love you the way you deserve, in ways that don't need grand gestures to be felt, in ways that whisper, I choose you. 1,000 times a day, through every tone, every silence, every act of presence. I want to be the place you finally exhale, the home your heart can rest in, not a question mark, but a confirmation, not a test, but a testimony. Because, baby, you passed every test that love, time, and trauma threw at you. And now, I finally understand this isn't just your victory, this is ours. Because without you, I wouldn't be here. Without your resilience, I wouldn't have found my strength. Without your surrender, I wouldn't have discovered what surrender truly means. And so, from this day forward, I vow not to waste another second pretending I don't feel everything this love is asking me to become. Baby, there's a kind of ache that never really goes away, the kind that hides behind smiles and small talk, behind responsibilities and daily routines. And mine is shaped exactly like you. It hums in the silence between my thoughts. It echoes when I walk into rooms we once imagined filling together. It breathes when I try to sleep but find your absence too loud. And I need you to know, this pain is not punishment. It's a remembrance, a reminder of the fire I once held in my hands but couldn't contain, the sacred kind of love that tested my soul. And I failed, but you passed. You passed the test when you loved me at my most unlovable. You passed when you waited longer than anyone would have. You passed when you didn't retaliate, didn't mock, didn't expose my failures, but instead turned your heartbreak into fuel for your own growth. That's why I'll never stop saying it. You are extraordinary. You are rare. You are everything. And it took me losing the light to realize I had it all along. Every man has a moment when he wakes up and realizes the cost of his silence. Mine came the day I saw your eyes no longer searching for me in the dark, when your energy stopped checking in, when your soul stopped sending those invisible signals across the universe to say, I'm still here. And that's when I panicked, because I always assumed deep down that you would wait forever, that no matter what storm I dragged you through, your heart would remain tethered to mine. But you didn't wait forever. You grew, you healed, you evolved. And that is when I knew I was in the presence of a queen all along, and I treated her like a vase. So let me say it clearly. You didn't just pass some romantic test. You passed life's test. You chose yourself in a world that begged you to shrink. You remained soft in a world that hardened most people. You kept your heart open even when it bled, and you did it all with grace. Baby, that's divine. That's sacred. That's strength I can only bow to. And I know now that love is not proven in grand moments. It's revealed in quiet choices, in who shows up when the masks fall, in who stays when the chaos arrives. And you, my love, you stayed, even when I gave you every reason to walk. That's why I'll spend the rest of my life trying to match the depth you loved me with. Not with flowers and poetry, but with actions that never let you question your worth again. Do you remember the first time I told you I loved you? I do. Not just the words, but the look in your eyes. That wide, trembling look of a soul that had been hurt before, but was still brave enough to believe again. And I remember promising you that I'd never be like the rest, that I'd protect that fragile hope, that I'd show you love could be safe. And I failed you. I failed you in 1,000 quiet ways, a delayed reply, every missed opportunity, every moment I let fear speak louder than love. But I'm not running from that truth anymore. I'm standing in it. I'm owning every shadow, every silence, every scar I left behind. Not to drown in guilt, but to honor the woman who held me up even when I didn't deserve it. You see, you weren't just my lover. You were my teacher, my mirror, my guide. And now, as I look back, I realize the test was never about you proving your love. It was about me learning to rise to the frequency of yours. I used to think love was about chemistry, about magnetic moments and shared playlists and inside jokes. But now I know real love is about resilience, about showing up, about doing the hard thing. And baby, I want to do the hard thing. I want to sit with your pain. I want to hold space for the parts of you that stop believing in apologies. I want to meet you in the quiet corners of your heart, where you've hidden the disappointment, the confusion, the unmet needs, not to fix you, but to witness you. All of you, and this time, not flinch, because I finally understand. When a woman passes the test of unconditional love, she doesn't want grand speeches. She wants presence. And I'm here now, not just in body, but in soul, in truth, in devotion. I know your love language was never just words, it was effort, it was reassurance, it was consistency, it was being chosen without having to beg. And so, here I am, showing up in the language you always spoke. I'm learning your silence. I'm learning the parts of you that became quiet because of me. And I want to give those parts a voice again. I want to earn your softness, not demand it. I want to become a space so safe that your heart doesn't need to flinch before opening again. I remember the things you said in the quiet. The I believe in yous when even I didn't. The I'm not going anywheres when I gave you every reason to. The prayers you whispered when I wasn't listening. And those moments They were the real vows, not the kind made in ceremonies, but the kind made in the trenches of real love. And I never forgot them. I just wasn't strong enough to live up to them. But now I want to make my vow. I vow to love you in the way you always loved me. Freely, without keeping score, without needing to win. I vow to meet your softness with strength, your independence with protection, your fire with devotion. I vow to be the man who shows up, even when it's hard. I vow to never weaponize your vulnerability or confuse your love for weakness. I vow to give you the security you always gave me, just through your presence. And if you let me, I vow to rebuild what I once shattered, not because you owe me a chance, but because this love deserves a resurrection. It deserves to be held, not just remembered. Because, baby, you passed the test, and now it's my turn. Baby, I wish you could have seen what I saw the moment I realized I had failed you. Not failed you in the way people use that word casually, but failed you like a sacred trust had been broken. Failed you like a temple left in ruins by the very hands that were meant to protect it. It didn't hit me all at once. No, it came slowly, like waves crashing against a dam I had built out of pride and fear. I told myself stories to feel okay. She'll come back. She knows I love her. It wasn't that bad. But all those stories shattered the night I watched you glow without me. Stronger, brighter, freer. And I realized I hadn't lost you. I had lost the version of myself that you once believed in. And just as your dead once believed in, I started remembering things I thought I had forgotten. The small ways you loved me. The way you'd remember the exact time I needed space. The way you'd send those one-line messages that felt like home. The way you never forced your love on me. Just let it exist like gravity, steady and unchanging. I didn't see then that those were the tests. The silent ones. The ones that didn't come with ultimatums or conditions. You just kept showing up until I stopped noticing. And when you stopped, the silence screamed louder than anything. You passed the test when you walked away with dignity. When you didn't need to destroy me to prove your worth. When you didn't go looking for replacements or tried to make me jealous. You just turned inward. You healed. You grew. And baby, that broke me in the best way possible. Because I realized I'd been in the presence of royalty and treated her like a guest. You were never just another chapter. You were the whole damn book. I remember that time we sat quietly and I asked you what love meant to you. You said, love means not making someone guess where they stand in your life. And I laughed like it was just another cute line. But now it's etched into my chest. Because for so long, you guessed if I cared. You guessed if I meant it. You guessed if I was really ever going to choose you fully. And still, you passed the test of loving me in my in-betweens. You could have turned cold. You could have built walls. You could have turned my silence into your silence. But you didn't. You mourned the love privately. And then you rose publicly. And you rose publicly. And baby, that strength, that quiet, radiant, divine strength, it shook me. Now I keep asking myself, how do you love someone who already passed every test you failed? You start by honoring the weight of what she carried. You start by no longer asking her to do all the emotional labor. You show up, not when it's convenient, not when you're lonely, not when your ego needs a fix, but when she least expects it, simply because she deserves it. And I'm here now, not to win you back with words, but to earn you with presence. You once told me, I don't want you to promise me forever. I want you to show me tomorrow. That hit me in the chest the other night when I read your old messages again. Because I see now that love isn't a grand performance. It's choosing each other in the small moments, in the doubt, in the exhaustion, in the fear. And I missed so many of those chances. I missed so many tomorrows that you gave me without asking. But now, if you ever gave me that tomorrow again, I would treat it like a sunrise after a lifetime of darkness. I would show up with a heart that's not perfect, but finally open. I wouldn't try to impress you with plans. I'd pursue you with peace. I wouldn't wait for the right time. I'd become the right energy. I wouldn't give you flowers to cover up past mistakes. I'd water the soil of this love with daily care. I wouldn't just say, I love you. I'd let you feel it in my words, in my tone, in how I protect your heart, even when you're not watching. You passed the test that most don't even recognize they're being given. You were tested in patience, in grace, in boundaries, in self-respect. And you didn't just pass, you transcended. That's why I keep saying you're not just a woman. You're a miracle wrapped in soft strength. You're a reminder of how God whispers through people that if I ever deserve a second chance, it won't be because I asked. It'll be because I've become the kind of man who finally understands the privilege of your presence. There were nights I prayed for clarity, nights I asked why I felt so empty, even when surrounded by distractions, and the answer always came back the same. You loved me purely. I didn't. And now that I've faced that truth, I've stopped running from the parts of me that once hurt you. I've looked them in the eye. I've named them. I've humbled them. And I've started building something new. Not for you, not to win you back, but because you deserve a man who isn't still bleeding all over your love letters. Let me tell you this, baby. I will never again let the noise of the world drown out the quiet truth of what we had. I will never again let my fear be louder than my faith. I will never again mistake your boundaries as rejection. I now understand that your silence was not punishment. It was a final attempt to protect your peace. And I hear it. I hear it all. I wish I could go back and hold you during the nights you cried yourself to sleep because of something I said or didn't say. I wish I could sit beside the version of you that waited by the phone, that overthought every word, that questioned if she was too much or not enough. I wish I could hold her hand and say, it was never you, it was me, and I see it now. But since I can't go back, I will go forward with reverence, with devotion, with the kind of love that doesn't need reminders or warnings. I will go forward as a man who finally passed the test of seeing you, not as a fantasy, not as a maybe, not as a backup plan, but as the divine gift you've always been. And now, baby, now I stand here with nothing to hide, nothing to protect, no masks, no shields, just a man whose soul has been humbled by the weight of your absence and awakened by the quiet echo of your love. This isn't some poetic confession wrapped in regret. This is truth, raw, naked, trembling truth. And it's only now, after watching you walk through the fire I lit, that I realize what true strength looks like. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not a performance. It's you. You choosing peace over validation. You letting go instead of begging. You healing in silence while the world moved on. You passed every spiritual test the universe gave you. And baby, I swear I watched heaven take notice. I used to think the test was about you waiting for me, but now I understand. The real test was for me to grow into someone worthy of you. And you passed that part long ago. You ascended, you evolved, you surrendered, and I was still clinging to old wounds, old fears, old habits that couldn't carry the kind of love you were offering. I didn't just fail the test back then. I wasn't even ready to enter the classroom. But now, baby, now I've learned, not just through pain, but through clarity, through accountability, through a kind of soul awakening that only happens when the one you were made for walks away and leaves the door open for you to return as someone new. I want you to know something tonight. I will spend every day honoring the test you passed, not by making noise, not by trying to earn points, but by becoming a man who finally understands the quiet holiness of your love. I will walk with gentleness, not just toward you, but toward myself, because the man you loved needed healing. He needed to become whole. And for once, baby, I'm doing that work. Not so I can say I've changed, but so that when you look at me again, you'll feel the shift. You'll feel the stillness, the peace, the presence. You'll see that I'm no longer chasing you. I'm building a life that could finally hold the love you gave so freely. If there's one thing I'll never forget, it's how you chose to love me while also letting me go. That duality, that depth. I don't think I'll ever meet another soul who could hold love and freedom in the same breath. But that's who you are. You don't possess, you bless. You don't chase, you trust. You don't demand, you invite. And baby, I promise you, no matter where this journey takes us, no matter how many lifetimes we walk through, I will never again question the truth of what you gave me. You passed the test when you didn't seek revenge, when you didn't expose me, when you didn't reduce my name to gossip or bitterness. You took the pain and turned it into wisdom. You took the silence and turned it into poetry. You took the ending and turned it into a resurrection. And I am still learning how you did that. How you took every bruise and turned it into a flower, every scar and turned it into scripture, baby. You are the definition of divine transformation. And I am in awe of you. So here I am now, not with flowers, but with faith, not with a ring, but with readiness, not with promises, but with presence, because I know now you don't need a savior. You need a partner. You don't want to be rescued. You want to be recognized. And I do. I see you now, not as someone I once loved, but as someone who loved me better than I knew how to love myself. And that kind of love changes a man forever. So if you're listening to this, my love, know that every word was born from a place I never let anyone enter before, a sacred place that only you ever touched. I don't know if destiny will allow us to walk side by side again. I don't know if this message will reach your heart in time, but I do know this. You passed the test. You passed it with grace, with fire, with the quiet roar of a woman who knows her worth and refuses to shrink again. And whether I ever get to hold you again or not, I will honor that. You taught me the kind of love that can't be replicated, the kind of love that doesn't just want to be felt, it wants to be protected. You were never asking too much. You were just asking the wrong version of me. But now, if the universe allows, if your soul still holds space for mine, I'm here. As a man who no longer just remembers your love, but reveres it. And if this is goodbye, then let it be holy. Let it be full of gratitude, not guilt. Let it be the kind of goodbye that says, I see you, I bless you, I'll love you in every life, even if from afar. But if it's not goodbye, if this is somehow the beginning of something reborn, something redeemed, something truly divine, then meet me in the stillness. Meet me where words don't matter anymore. Meet me where our hearts already know the way back. And just whisper one thing, baby. I know you see me now, because I do, and I always will.